I'm your host, Kat, and I'm coming to you from the heartland, Central Illinois, where folks still work hard and we believe that girls are girls and boys are boys and boys shouldn't be in girls' locker rooms. We've got a lot to get to this morning. As always, subscribe if you're not already on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble. Give me a follow and be sure to head on over to patriotpumpenergy.com. Grab your pre-workout today, $10 off at checkout if you use the promo code. It's the best promo code out there, by the way, Conservative Cat. Spell cat with a C for me. We're going to get into Central Illinois struggling with massage parlor. Crackdown that they're doing amid this human trafficking concern that's out there. So Central Illinois is struggling with this because they've passed all these ordinances, but it turns out that the human trafficking is still there. There's illicit massage parlors everywhere, despite all these ordinances being passed. And we're going to get to that. We're also going to get to Illinois versus your wallet, how the interchange fee, this is the swipe fee, the card swipe fee ban is going to hurt the little guy. Okay, so they've banned that little fee that they charge at businesses. If you use a credit card, they've banned businesses from using that. And that's ultimately going to hurt the little guy. And I'll tell you how. Coming up in just a little bit, we're also going to talk about felons, final expenses, and the free market, Illinois' insurance overreach. There's a bill that's been passed where they can't go off of risk assessment, actuary science, the insurance companies, they can't create rates based off risk anymore. And they want to ensure felons aren't charged more for being a risk. So I'm going to be getting into all of it right here on Conservative Cat. Find me at theconservativecat.com. Let's get into it. Okay, so I was pouring through the news and I saw this 25 WEEK. They reported an Illinois State Police investigation resulted in the recovery of a person who had been trafficked. Okay, a human trafficking. So there was a police investigation on April 23rd. The Normal Police Department got Normal, Illinois. They got a call of service from a massage spa parlor in Normal, Illinois. And the Illinois State Police would not disclose the specific location of this massage spa due to an ongoing investigation. This according to 25 WEEK. When Normal police officers arrived, they found a person at the spa who asked for help, and they said that they were a victim of human trafficking. Officers helped the victim, and then they called state police for assistance. ISP then executed a search warrant on that business. And yeah, the story's out there, but let's do a little bit more digging. And I dug up some things, and over the last couple of years, municipalities like Peoria, Springfield, Chatham, Morton, they've had, stricter massage licensing laws. Why? Well, they claim it's all in the name of cracking down on human trafficking. Okay. And they passed all of these ordinances at the local level in Peoria, Springfield, Chatham, Morton. And they're shutting down these illicit spa businesses. And that's why they say they want these ordinances. But is this the right approach? Do we need more government regulations? Or are we just adding layers of bureaucracy without really solving the problem? So we look at human trafficking, and this is an awful issue. We all agree on that. Human trafficking is absolutely terrible. But when it comes to solving it, we need to ask the right questions. We need to ask, what should we do? Should local governments be passing more ordinances to regulate massage businesses to get the job? Should we be doing that? Should they be passing more ordinances to regulate these massage businesses? Legal massage businesses are going to be getting the brunt of this. Or do we rely on law enforcement and the existing regulations to get this job done that we need done to crack down on illicit massage parlors? So he's torn here. State Representative John Cabela, who's on the front lines, law enforcement, state representative, a conservative state representative. his take, he's torn between two political instincts, okay? His desire for limited government and the need to stop bad actors. So, State Representative John Capello, he says, as a Republican, we're supposed to be for smaller government, less red tape. So, passing these ordinances, is this actually the solution? But when it comes to businesses, that are shady like this, I support these kinds of ordinances. Sometimes it's a necessary evil, so more government. I assume the police departments would be able to handle something, even if there wasn't an ordinance in place, right? If something were to take place at one of these illicit massage parlors. But I don't necessarily believe that the city has to have an ordinance. That's what John Capello says. And I respect Representative Capello's perspective. He's right. As conservatives, we typically are for smaller government, and we don't want more red tape. We don't want more regulation. Yet there's a catch here. Some of these businesses are obviously up to no good. So how do you make sure that these are legitimate massage parlors and not fronts for human trafficking? So what do? Do we throw more ordinances at the problem, or do we lean on the systems that we already have? Because folks, we've already got things already set up in place. We've got what's called the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation, the IDFPR. They oversee licensing for massage therapists. Now, they're supposed to be the watchdogs, right? And they're supposed to investigate these complaints through a specific division. It's actually quite hilarious. They've got a division, and a division to kind of investigate these complaints. And it's just layers upon layers of bureaucracy. Let me tell you how this kind of goes. So the Illinois Department of Financial Professional Regulation, they are supposed to enforce massage therapist licensure through their division of professional. And remember, they're fully staffed. These bureaucracies are fully staffed. They're supposed to enforce this through their division of professional regulation, the DPRs. And then get this, there's another layer of bureaucracy here, the DPR statewide enforcement section. So there's a section from within. So there's a subsection of a subsection of subsection in government. Shocking. They do it this way, so that way there's a ton of state employees and they all get paid and they're all Governor J.B. Pritzker appointed and they're all his buddies, right? Now they're supposed to investigate complaints and alleged violations, which usually originate from the public, law enforcement, or other governmental agencies. So the city of Bloomington, the town of Normal, if they suspect a business is being illicit, they can lodge a complaint and they don't have to investigate. They don't have to pass an ordinance. They could just lodge a complaint with the state agency that's tasked with doing this already. So they're the watchdogs. They're already supposed to investigate these complaints and violations, and they've got the power to go after these bad businesses. But here's the kicker. Most of the time, these investigations don't start because of an ordinance or because of a routine check, by the way. This starts because somebody in the public, law enforcement, or another investigation flags the issue. And then the cops go into the business, okay, because they receive a tip, a complaint from the public or from a victim themselves. In the case of Normal, they were called out for a complaint, and then the victim had disclosed she was a victim of human trafficking. Representative Capello said it himself. You can't just walk into a place and inspect it and make sure everybody's up to snuff with their licensing and things. You need a complaint or something to go in. You can't just go into a business and accuse them of human trafficking, right? You need something to go off of. And once something's confirmed, you shut them down, the owners go to jail, and it kind of depends for how long they're in jail. Now, here in the state of Illinois, I don't think you guys are, naive. Most of the time, you get a slap on the wrist and then you're out. And then these human traffickers, these owners of these massage parlors, which are just fronts for human trafficking businesses, they just move somewhere else, or other illicit activity, drugs, whatever, organized crime. They just get out of jail and then they go somewhere else. See, the problem is that these businesses don't just disappear when you pass an ordinance. If you shut them down, they might just move to a different town. If you pass an ordinance, it might just move them to a different town. What really needs to happen is strong enforcement and penalties. People who are doing this sort of stuff, they need to serve. If you enslave someone, why the hell are you not serving a prison sentence of 20 plus years to life? I don't know why that would be. I have no idea. Safety Act. Here we are. Do we really think local ordinances, more bureaucracy is going to stop these bad guys? I don't think so. I think that there just needs to be a major crackdown in law enforcement, and we need to get rid of the Safety Act, because probably under that is the reason why we're playing this game of whack-a-mole, because Peoria, Springfield, Decatur, all of these surrounding communities have passed ordinances, and it doesn't seem to be getting much better, right? Just seems like it's going to the town over. Now, let's look at the other side of the argument here. They want an ordinance, and I am not in any way disrespecting allies against trafficking. I think we can all agree that trafficking is bad. It's just the solution of how to combat it. I think we disagree on the executive director of Allies Against Trafficking. Not a nonprofit yet, I don't believe, but Nancy Bollinger had said that they were going to get a nonprofit status, and she's the executive director. And she's been vocal about these illicit massage parlors, and she claims that there were 14 illicit massage businesses in Bloomington, Illinois alone. Okay, that's not including Springfield and Peoria. She claims that there were 14, and then she's pushing the city council to have these businesses register, which they're already required to do with the state. Okay, and that would allow the authorities to verify that they employed licensed therapists, okay, if they had these ordinances. She points to cities like Springfield, Peoria, and Morton. They have ordinances like this, and they've closed several illicit spas. Since the ordinance, she says, since 2018, Springfield, Peoria, Chatham, Morton, they have all passed local ordinances to regulate massage businesses. Okay, but like, you're already supposed to register with the state, and they have a division where they're supposed to be following up on this. They're supposed to be, there's already a licensing process in place. This is just duplicative, I think, in the ordinances. And I'm all for combating human trafficking. I say, once you shut them down, you'll find out pretty quickly how they won't pop back up if you jail somebody for 20 years to life for human trafficking. Okay, that's what needs to truly happen, is just the law enforcement crackdown and shutting the bars and locking them up and throwing away the key. That's what needs to happen. Anyway, as a result of these ordinances, and I'm not saying the ordinances don't help some, they might help, considering this 11 illicit massage parlors were closed in Springfield, Illinois as a result of the ordinances. I don't know, maybe it's just because the law enforcement had a fire under their butts after the ordinance was passed in the city, because the city's their boss, right? So maybe a fire was lit under their asses, and they were like, we got to really crack down on these massage parlors in Springfield. And maybe that's what resulted in the 11 illicit massage parlors being closed. Morton also shut down 2 illicit spas. And this was creepy. One of these spas was like next door to a Kroger grocery store. So like, these could look very much like a regular massage parlor, but like, you go behind the curtain and then it's human trafficking, an illicit massage business. This is crazy. And, this sounds like progress, but again, the question is, are these ordinances really the solution? Or is it just a band-aid? After all, we have a licensing system already in place, and we have an enforcement system already in place. We have this whole division dedicated to making sure that these licensures, or this licensing process, is happening. Why are local governments creating more regulation if the existing system isn't being enforced properly? And we can't forget about the taxpayers with human trafficking. One Bloomington resident, he nailed it on the head, and we're going to play this here because this is really important. He was there at public comment at a Bloomington City Council meeting. human trafficking doesn't just fade into the ether, right? They end up in the social services system, or they wind up costing taxpayers. The victims. And when these people get out of these illegal operations, they often rely on the judicial systems, the healthcare systems, and they're draining the public resources, which is not their fault, right? That's why the public resources are there. But we've got to ask ourselves who's really paying for all of this. So the human trafficking issue, it's a really big issue. Okay, we want these people to be contributing members of society. That's why the social services exist. I'm not against social services, specifically for human trafficking victims and for people who need them. But we need to get this eradicated in our communities. And I'm sorry, but I hate it when government says, let's throw more government at the problem. We already have the laws in place. I don't know why the hell a human trafficker would be getting out of jail in the first place. 20 plus years, 20 years, something like that is what I think is a perfectly fine sentence. Let's take a listen to this fella. His name's Paul Huberson. He was at the Bloomington City Council meeting. I think you guys will like what he says here, because what I really like what he says here is that, hey, this extends beyond police and government. We in our communities need to be the solution. So take a listen.
Thank you so much for this time that you're giving us. Me and my partners here are wanting to speak about human trafficking here in town. And just starting off, human trafficking isn't just a horrible thing for the impact it has on the human side and physical and emotional side, but it's also a very expensive problem just in our community. The people that are in it, they're not contributing to the community in jobs and families and in any function. And then when they get out of it, they're usually involved in the judicial or penal or healthcare or social services system. So no insurance, no resources. This is falling on taxpayers. And unfortunately, you know, if they have children, they usually get caught up in this horror, and you know, it just multiplies. We were involved in this mission a few years ago, and it expanded down in Texas. And I remember we were down there for a dinner, and the chief of police got up and spoke, and he was passionate about fighting this in his community. But he made a great statement that it's not a police problem, it's not a government problem, it's a community problem. So everybody needs to come together, including the citizens, on education, on enforcement, and working together to try and eradicate this from your community. And it's a difficult one. It's not as black and white as violence or drugs or something like that. It goes unchecked, and it's tough to fight. And not to be too dramatic here, but in the 1860s, we fought the worst war on human life in our country, and it was against slavery. There was 4 million slaves back then. There's estimated to be 400,000 slaves in our country, and which is still 400,000 too many. So we're just wanting to stand up with our leaders in this community, the police force, and just come together and be a hub that could connect all parties to fight this issue. And in closing, I just like to say, as people can't be great if there's something really wrong with them. I don't think a community can be great if there's just something really wrong with the community. And this is something that I really, truly believe passionately that we have to come together and fight on and get it out of our community. So thank you again so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul.
Well, I think what he said there was wonderful. You know, he was a Bloomington resident. He went to the Bloomington City Council meeting and it made his voice heard. And we need to have a real conversation, folks. The solution isn't piling on more laws. Okay. And he's probably for that because he was with this group. It's called Allies Against Trafficking. And maybe it helped a little bit, but really what I think needs to happen is just this major crackdown needs to happen where we lock these people up for trafficking humans and enslaving humans, and we throw them in jail for 20 plus years. The solution isn't piling more laws. It's about ensuring the laws that we have are enforced. We have entire state divisions and taxpayers are paying for the state agency, multiple sections of this state agency to enforce the licensing process. And human trafficking is a crime and it deserves swift justice. And I really do believe if there was swift justice here and you went in and you did a raid, you collected the women, you put them in the correct social services, and you locked up the traffickers for 20 plus years, I really think that would combat the human trafficking crime, because you'd be surprised. People are like, oh boy, they don't mess around here with human trafficking. I'll go to prison for the rest of my life. I'm not going to do it, at least not here in Illinois. You know what I mean? Because the cops are going to lock me up forever. And, we should not be for creating more government. Okay. And the bottom line here, we don't need more ordinances. We need smarter enforcement and not all these layers of bureaucracy. I do need to take a quick break, but we are going to be getting into this Interchange Fee Prohibition Act. Now, this has been delayed, and it's been delayed for a year. It's still lurking out there like, a bad idea waiting to pounce. This is the Interchange Fee Prohibition Act. Okay, so we're talking about a bill out of Illinois, and it's going to try to fix our credit card fees. It nearly broke small businesses in the this is going to break small businesses in the process if this thing gets passed. And like I said, it's been delayed. So we're going to start very, very simple. When you swipe your card at a store, credit or debit, the store gets to charge a tiny fee. Usually it's a 1 to 3% fee of that transaction. Okay, you'll see it at the bottom of your receipt. The fee is called an interchange fee. And this fee goes to the banks and to the companies that are actually processing those payments, because guess what? Your small town butcher, okay, he's not going to know how to process credit card payments. Most people don't. I don't know the first thing on how to process a payment myself. The banks do that, right? Like Visa card or Visa and MasterCard, and they secure the transaction. Okay. Now, most business owners, they budget for this, for that, and it's part of their cost, okay, of accepting plastic instead of cash. So they budget for this, the fee, really the fee is to kind of have the credit card companies do it, so that way they can prevent fraud, encryption, things like that. And I'm going to be right back. We got to take a quick break, but I'll be right back, and we are going to talk more about this interchange fee on the other side, and you won't want to miss it, because there's another bill I want to talk about. Governor J.B. Pritzker, House Bill 2425. He's set to sign this, and what this is, it's dressed up like a justice reform bill, but really it's government overreach into private industry, the insurance company. And believe me, I'm not a fan of insurance companies, but when you do this government overreach, the insurance companies are going to leave. And we know what happened in California when the insurance company leaves. Nobody has insurance after their homes sizzle up and burn away. That's what's going on in Los Angeles right now. State Farm was not there. Turns out State Farm wasn't a good neighbor. State Farm is there. They weren't there. Why? Because California has done similar things where they've handcuffed insurance companies, and they've done this government overreach. So we're going to get into that. You'll see Conservative Cat Cities. Patriot Pump Media, brought to you by Patriot Pump Media. Be sure to go to patriotpumpenergy.com and use the promo code Conservative Cat for $10 off. Welcome to Conservative Cat Clips, where the claws come out and the truth lands hard. I'm your host, Cat. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something that ought to make every Illinois taxpayer's blood boil. You're funding the abortion industry, and the abortion industry is very, very funded by the state of Illinois. So we're going to be zooming in on Illinois. What used to be the land of Lincoln is now the Midwest's abortion sanctuary. Under Governor J.B. Pritzker, Illinois has gone full throttle into becoming what he proudly calls the beacon for reproductive rights. Translation, come one, come all. Have your abortions here, and the taxpayers are going to pick up the tab. In 2019, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the so-called Reproductive Health Act, making abortion, quote, a fundamental right in Illinois. But that wasn't all. He also repealed the Parental Notification Act for minors getting abortions. So that means little Susie, if she's 12 years old, she doesn't need her parents' permission to go get an abortion. Your 13-year-old daughter can get an abortion in Illinois, even without you knowing. And while Illinois families are struggling with inflation, property taxes, and rising crime, guess where your tax dollars are going? The last few years, just tens of millions of dollars of Illinois taxpayer dollars have gone to Planned Parenthood in just a few years, tens of millions of dollars. And they're not going to just fund the procedure itself. They're paying for out-of-state women to come here and abort their babies. It includes transportation, lodging costs, and logistical support, whatever the hell that means. I'm probably paying for some woman to get a McDonald's sandwich while she's here in the state. And literally, we're running a state-sponsored abortion tourism business. That's what we're doing here in the state. And let's not forget Planned Parenthood CEO salaries. Over $670,000 for Alexis McGill Johnson. Regional directors, they make about like six figures too. So your paycheck is shrinking, their paycheck is growing, and your roads have potholes, but Planned Parenthood thriving. Pritzker loves to pose as a champion for women, but let's be honest, this isn't even about ideology. It's about power and money. He's not protecting women. He's protecting Planned Parenthood's bottom line and all of these people raking in that CEO cash. And Illinois is now the abortion capital of the Midwest because he made it that way. Governor J.B. Pritzker. Illinois used to be about opportunity and family values. Now it's the go-to state for late-term abortion. Over 46,000 abortions in Illinois were done in 2022 or 2023 alone. 46,000 in Illinois alone, and many of you paid for that. And under Governor J.B. Pritzker, that number is just going to keep going up and up and up every single year. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. I'm Cat, reminding you that taxpayer-funded abortion is not compassionate. It's corruption. And all of these people are making tons of money. And it's time we demand real leadership. It's time we step up and demand that they stop funding this madness. It's time we stand for life here in the state of Illinois.
You ever tried to explain your faith to someone who doesn't get it? Like you're speaking a different language? Peter knew that tension. He told believers to live such good lives among the pagans that even if they accused them of doing wrong, they'd see their lives and end up glorifying God. Translation: let your life preach louder than your lips. It's not weakness. That's warfare. You don't always need a microphone. You need integrity. You need consistency. You need to grind with grit and grace when no one's cheering. People are watching how you handle stress, how you treat your wife, how you react when life sucker punches you. They're watching to see if your God is real because your walk is the evidence. You don't get to control what they say, but you can live in a way that shuts lies down over time. Let your honesty wreck stereotypes. Let your discipline echo louder than their gossip. Let your kindness feel like a gut punch to a world used to selfish men. Because one day, maybe not now, maybe not soon, those same people who laughed at your faith might remember your life when they hit rock bottom. And when they do, they'll know who to call. Live like someone's eternity might depend on it, because it might. You want a pre-workout that speaks for itself? Patriot Pump doesn't need hype, just results. Clean energy, no crash, built for men who lead by example, on the platform or in the shadows. Fuels what matters. Train for legacy.
Good morning. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat, and I so do appreciate you being here. Before we took the break, we were talking about the Interchange Fee Prohibition Act, and it's been delayed for a year, but it's still lurking out there like a bad idea waiting to pounce. So we are going to be getting into this. Go ahead, find me on theconservativecat.com. You can also go to patriotpumpenergy.com. Get your bottle of pre-workout today, $10 off at checkout if you use the promo code ConservativeCat, brought to you by Patriot Pump Media. Let's start simple. Okay, when you swipe your card, that's a 1 to 3% fee. Okay. That gets charged, and the fee is called an interchange fee, and it goes to the banks and the companies that process the payment, like Visa or MasterCard, okay, and they secure the transaction. Now, most business owners budget for that. It's all part of the cost and accepting plastic instead of just cash. They understand that it pays for fraud prevention, encryption, service systems, and customer perks like reward points, okay? So here's where Illinois stepped in with this new law, and they said you can't charge those fees on the part of the bill that covers taxes and tips. Okay. So why? The lawmakers claimed that it's going to save consumers money and protect them from unfair fees. Okay, but here's the catch. It's really not actually going to help consumers at all. It's going to hurt businesses and local banks because they can't change how these transactions are processed. Okay, so the way it's all kind of lumped in is you have to kind of separate the taxes and tips from the processing, and you have to eliminate this fee. Right now, it's all kind of together. And they don't want you to include the taxes and tips on that interchange fee, and they want you to separate it out. Okay, so here's what the law actually does. It makes payment systems way more complicated at the end of the day. Imagine your small business has to separate the tip, the tax, and the sandwich, okay, on every credit card bill. Okay, so the price of the actual item, the taxing, the tip, if you work at whatever, Jimmy John's or whatever, and you have to process them all differently. That's what this does. It forces businesses to upgrade their payment system. That's going to be expensive and complicated. Big chains like Target can't afford this. They can totally change up their payment systems, and it's not that big a deal for big chains like Target, Walmart. Mom and pop diners, not so much. Then there's the increases of fraud risk because you're splitting transactions in really weird ways, and there's a chance for data errors and manipulation. That the chance for all of that goes up, and that's why groups like the Illinois Bankers Association and the Electronic Transactions Association, they immediately filed lawsuits to stop this law. Okay, so because there's going to be a lot of complication with this. Especially if you're a small business owner. Now, according to the Center Square, quoting Ben Jackson from the Illinois Bankers Association, this law will cause widespread economic disruption. It's only going to benefit corporate megastores and burden small businesses and smaller financial institutions. Okay, so in other words, this is government picking winners and losers again. And guess what? You are not the winner. The small business owner is not the winner. Even the feds think that this is garbage. So this is not, a right-wing opinion. This was years ago. So under the Joe Biden administration, they said the Federal Office of the Comptroller and Currency, which oversees banks nationwide, they filed an official legal brief against this bill, against this law. And they said it's ill-conceived, it's highly unusual, and it's unworkable. They even said that it would increase fraud, cut consumer services, and reduce public trust in banking. Translation, the law doesn't just stink, it's dangerous. Okay, where the encryption, your credit card information, when you process these payments, it's going to make it more susceptible to be stolen. and it's not going to be as secure because you have to separate everything out. Not only is that a burden on small businesses, but it's also dangerous for the consumer. Let's ask the real question: who benefits from this? So the Illinois Retail Merchants Association, they lobbied hard for this bill, and they claim it's about fairness. Okay, so they represent the major corporate stores that can handle or even exploit these kinds of regulations. Okay, small businesses don't really have that luxury. They can't really handle this. They've got to figure out, mom and pop sandwich shop has to figure out how to change their processing, and that's going to come out of a cost. And this becomes yet another example of big corporations writing policy, Democrats rubber stamping it, and you picking up the tab. So the delay, it's not a victory. It's just a timeout. There's been a delay. There's obviously legal challenges to this. The state has agreed to delay the law for a year, but don't be fooled. That's not a win. It's just a timeout. Governor J.B. Pritzker has signed off on the delay, and the Illinois Retail Merchants Association is already saying that they want the law to be enforced as soon as possible. Jody Kelly quoted in the Center Square, the Electronic Transaction Association is who she's with, and she's warning that even if the court lets a small piece of this law stand, it'll still hurt local banks and credit card unions or credit unions. And the legislature needs to repeal the whole kit and caboodle and repeal the rest. So here's the bottom line, folks. The law is an example of the government trying to micromanage these markets, and micromanage markets it doesn't really understand. And I'm not for banks. Okay, people think I'm for MasterCard and Visa. I'm not. This was lobbied for by, and it's very clear, corporate giants at the expense of small town businesses, and it creates more red tape, more cost, more confusion. And they're trying to pretend to help you by getting rid of this little tiny fee, which is 1% to 3%. And I don't know about you, but it's okay to pay the 1% to 3% for me. If they're going to process it, they're going to secure it, these banks, and they're going to make sure that my credit card information is not given out to and is not in the ether and able to be taken. Okay. I'm okay with the 1% fee for that kind of stuff. I don't know about you. But it's classic liberal playbook. They try to distract you and they try to make you think that, oh, this stuff is what's costing you so much money as a consumer. We're here from the government. We're here to help and help themselves, right? This is going to benefit corporate giants. And we know who the corporate giants all love. They love Governor J.B. Pritzker and Democrats. Okay. And they'll say, okay, don't worry. We'll contribute to your campaigns if you push this law through. Okay, so we don't need more regulation on the point of sale. Okay, we need simpler taxes, fewer mandates, and a legislature to stop treating every economic issue like a PR stunt. This is really just what it is. It's a PR stunt. We want to get rid of this 1% fee that you pay when you use a credit card. Okay, which you probably didn't even notice this swipe fee that happens. It happens with every transaction. Really, at the end of the day, I think I'm okay with paying that, if that means the transaction is going to be secure. But what they want to do is write out the big banks or Visa and MasterCard. And what can we do? You're probably asking, what can we do? Well, you could call your lawmakers. You can tell them that the law needs to be repealed, not just delayed. And you can, so this is a law. I've been saying it's a bill. It was signed into law. Now it's been tied up in the courts. So that's why it hasn't been implemented. They've delayed the law a year, and Governor J.B. Pritzker agreed to delay the law. So you need to ask for a repeal. Okay. Not for Governor J.B. Pritzker not to sign it because it's already law. And the truth is, bad laws like this, they really hurt people. Not the lobbyists, not the bureaucrats, but they do hurt you. The small business owner has to try to figure this out and ultimately change their entire point of sale and the way they process payments. If they want to use credit cards and debit cards, if they don't want to just go to cash, they'll have to figure out a whole nother payment system. And that's going to be complicated and it's going to be costly. So this is the Conservative Cat Show, where common sense has 9 lives and liberal logic never lands on its feet. Be sure to find me at the Conservative Cat Show. Today, we're digging into the bill also passed by Illinois General Assembly, House Bill 2425. It's going to go to the governor for him to sign. Okay, so this is bill going to go for, I think it was this legislative session. Yes. He's going to sign this. This is about insurance companies. Now, buckle up, Patriots. This is House Bill 2425. Now, at first glance, you're like, oh, well, this is like justice reform. This isn't that bad. But you scratch the surface a little bit, and then you realize that this is going to cost law-abiding citizens in the end, this bill. So buckle up. Here we go. House Bill 2425 just passed both chambers out of our glorious Illinois legislature because they're just such great people there. So they're prohibiting it prohibits life insurance companies from denying coverage or charging higher rates to people just because they have been convicted of felonies. So convicted felons, just because they're convicted felons. You can't raise the rates on people. Now, if you hear that, you might say, come on, Kat, this is about second chances. Sure. But insurance isn't about second chances. It's not about that at all. It's about risk. Okay. And I can't believe I'm defending MasterCard and Visa this morning and insurance companies because I don't like them either. But at the end of the day, this is all designed to be a burden on you. Okay, so State Senator Adrian Johnson, a Democrat from Buffalo Grove, sponsored the bill and said in the Center Square, insurers are discriminating against those who are convicted of felonies. She says, quote, this is considerable evidence that many of them discriminate against individuals with a felony. The rates are astronomical, and therefore, in essence, that's a denial. Okay, a denial of life insurance. So if you die, you don't have life insurance because it's too astronomical for you. Now, here's the problem. She's talking about discrimination, but what she's actually talking about is math. Okay, so a lot of these insurance companies have no idea who's a felon, who's not, right? They assign people with letters and numbers, and it's actuarial math. Is this person a risk? Felony convictions often correlate with higher mortality risks, okay, naturally. Okay, if you're a felony drug conviction, you're convicted of a felony, like you're probably going to be at a much higher risk of an overdose than somebody who doesn't have drug addiction and was convicted of a felony trying to distribute drugs. Okay, that's not a political opinion. This is an insurance calculation based on data. Okay, and it doesn't really take a rocket scientist to know that convicts probably die and have higher mortality risks. Okay. This is just a reality that we live in. I don't like the insurance companies either. It sucks. I know. But if we're going to do this whole insurance thing, I'd love to just get rid of it entirely and say, hey, save it for yourself, right? Why would I pay somebody who, I could just save the money that I pay them and then have the money for the ultimate, or whatever happens in life. You know what I mean? So just saving the money myself and storing it away rather than paying the company. But now you need insurance. It's just because the medical industry is so expensive. If something happens, like you break your leg, you can't afford it because the subsidies, the subsidized industries, they're astronomical. The costs are astronomical because they're subsidized. Okay, so if they weren't subsidized industries like the medical industry, it's very highly subsidized. That's why they charge you $15 for a box of tissues if you use it at the hospital, because they're getting government dollars. And yeah, they charge you out the wazoo for, a box of tissues because they're getting this government money. Anyway, so the calculation here is based on data. Okay, the felonies, convicts, they are more likely to die. Okay, that just based on math. Thankfully, not everyone in Springfield has lost their minds. State Senator Dave Syverson, he's a Republican. he made an obvious point. This is center square. He says, under this, we're saying that one group of individuals that actuarially are a higher risk that should be set, that should be set aside. Okay, so that these higher risk individuals should be set aside and everybody else has to pay for these higher rates. That's ultimately how insurance works. And that is going to suck for you and me, because if you're not a convicted felon, right? Boom. I mean, there it is. It's wealth redistribution and it's a scheme. And it's disguised as criminal justice reform. And hey, these people deserve second chances. You're no longer pricing policies based off risk, and you're setting aside a group that is high risk, and you are going to set them aside and ignore the fact that they're high risk, and you're just going to raise everybody else's rates, because that's ultimately what insurance companies are going to do. They're not going to say, oh, okay, I'll listen to you, Illinois legislature. No, they're going to cover that risk somehow, and they're just going to raise the rates on everybody, okay? And if you're no longer pricing policies based on risk, you're pricing based on, feelings, and that's what they want, is to price based on feelings. You pick up the tab ultimately, and you lowered the rates for the convicted felons. Okay, you're going to pay for this convicted felon to not have a higher rate. So State Senator Jason Plummer, another Republican quoted in the Center Square, said, if this bill just said, hey, you can't use the fact that they have a felony against them, I'd support it, but they're playing with rates here in this bill. Exactly. The bill doesn't just say don't deny felons outright. It tells insurers how much they can charge no matter the risk. Okay. And when you do that, when you start pricing a risk-based industry like insurance, and you start messing with their pricing and it doesn't go off risk and it goes off feelings, you're going to have companies leave the market. You're going to have cost rise for everybody across the board, and the free market dies a little more. And we know what happens when companies leave. When they leave, then you're out of insurance totally. So this kind of stuff happens in Los Angeles and California all of the time. And they ultimately wound up not having insurance, the people in Los Angeles. I do want to get to this clip here. This is the Republican who took issue with this, Dave Syverson, on the floor, and he just sums it all up perfectly. Let's take a listen. If I can get it, here we go.
Considerable evidence that many of them discriminate against individuals with a felony. The rates are astronomical. So let's make sure we remove the invisible handcuffs and remove the invisible prison cells and allow these individuals to purchase final expense policies.
Under this, we're saying to one group of individuals that actuarially are a higher risk, that should be set aside, and we should make everybody else have to pay higher rates.
If this bill just said, hey, they can't use the fact that they have a felony against them and offering thing, I'd fully support it. But it gets into playing with rates that insurance companies can charge.
So there you have it. Now, there's this quote from Senator Johnson, Adrian Johnson, and this is how they wrap government overreach in this cute little feel-good wrapper, okay? And they give it to you, and it's really just a BS sandwich, okay? And they wrap it in a nice feel-good wrapper. They say, let's remove the invisible handcuffs and allow these people to purchase their final expense policies so their families are not burdened and they're able to die with dignity. Okay, so this is all about feel good, and it sounds really nice. Yeah, of course, we want people to die with dignity. We want people to have life insurance, even if you have a felony conviction, because I do believe in second chances, 100%. But this is a company, okay, private company, and they deal with risk and actuarial science, okay, and to give discounts to convicted criminals who ultimately are going, like, it's all about risk. These convicted criminals they're more likely to die than that of a law-abiding citizen, and that's just the math. Okay, so it's not fair. You're going to force law-abiding families to subsidize those rates with higher premiums. You're going to wind up paying more for life insurance because you got to pick up the tab for the convicted felon because they got to pay out, and they've assumed more risk. So it's not fair. Definitely not. And I believe in redemption. I'm a Christian. I believe in redemption. I believe people change all of the time, and they change through the one and only Jesus Christ. I believe that. But these private companies, they're being punished essentially for using data and assessing risk and pricing accordingly. Okay, and I don't like the insurance, exactly what Ryan says here. The insurance industry is a hot mess, and it's designed to pay out as little as possible. And they make money off of us. Yes. I don't like the insurance companies as much as the next guy. Unfortunately, that's what we've got here in America. And until we take the government dollars out of the insurance companies, I don't think that it's going to be run properly. They're given government subsidies all the time. But this is the system we've got. And forcing them to not go off risk and data, okay, and price according to that, they're saying it's discrimination. It's not discrimination. It's just how insurance works. You would think that these people would know that. So let's talk real world consequences. This bill, what it does, it distorts the insurance market by decoupling risk from the price. Okay, so you're essentially asking insurance companies to go based off feelings and price based off feelings. And that's a dangerous, sticky situation. And you don't want insurance companies to do that. You want them to charge off risk. Okay, it's a risk-based industry, and it should be charged that way. You're punishing companies that use standard actuarial tables, data, facts, passing costs onto everyday citizens, law-abiding citizens who play by the rules. Okay, you're going to pass the cost of these people who don't play by the rules, by the way, and pass the cost onto the law-abiding citizen. And you're encouraging, of course, more regulation, not less. So we are against this. And worst of all, it doesn't even cover people currently in prison, by the way. So this isn't really about dignity. She says these people deserve to die with dignity. It doesn't even really cover people who are currently in prison. Okay, so they're not saying that. They're not going that far. And they're saying, hey, insurance companies, you have to not charge the people in prison because, of course, prison, you're very probably more so than the released felony or convicted felon, you're very likely to die in prison. I would say more so than those who are out of prison. Common sense tells you that. So this really isn't about dignity, because if it was really about dignity, they'd say the convicts who are inside prison, this should also extend to them. But they're not going that far. So really, this is just a political statement, and they're doing it at the expense of a functioning economy. And this is all symbolic lawmaking. It's designed to grab headlines, and there's no real solving of real problems here. Let's try to get them to not be convicted felons, so that way they're not a risk. And that way they can have cheaper insurance because they're not a risk. Okay, so here's where I stand. This is another example of Democrats in Illinois trying to legislate equality of outcome rather than protecting freedom and opportunity. Okay, and if insurance companies can't assess risk, they won't stay in Illinois. And we know how bad that would be if they didn't stay in Illinois. They'll pack up, and like most other businesses have in Illinois at this point, they'll pack up, they'll leave, and we'll have something similar like Los Angeles, okay, where the insurance companies left there, and now they're all paying out of pocket for their damaged homes from the wildfires, the totally preventable wildfires, by the way. So I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat. Find me at theconservativecat.com, and be sure to grab your bottle of Patriot Pump, patriotpumpenergy.com. Use promo code CAT at checkout, and that's $10 off. I'll be right back. Welcome to Conservative Cat Clips, where the claws come out and the truth is on tap. I love the truth. I'm your host, Cat, and we are cutting through the holy hypocrisy and setting the record straight from the big lie that is pushed by the left. The Bible supports illegal immigration. Oh, really? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because guess what? We're walking through Scripture, and we're going to provide you some common sense. Now, every time we talk about the border security, some activist grabs the Bible and says, Jesus was a refugee. Okay, sweetie, let's clear this up. Jesus wasn't hopping the fence or dodging border patrol. Okay, his family fled legally under laws of the land. There's a big difference between seeking refuge and violating the country's sovereignty. The Bible is crystal clear about this. God is a God of law and order, and he's just so awesome. Man, I could just jump for Jesus every morning. Not chaos, not loopholes. God is not a God of that. God is a God of order, and everything has a place. Romans 13, 1-2 says, let every person be subject to governing authorities. Whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed. Okay, translation, the nation has immigration laws, okay, and they're not being followed. Smuggling people across the borders, overstaying your visa, and lying to get in, that's not compassion, that's rebellion, okay? And now, yes, the Bible says care for the stranger. Absolutely, but here's the kicker. In ancient Israel, the sojourner or foreigner was expected to obey the laws of the land. Here's Numbers. Numbers 15, verse 16 says, one law shall be for you and for your stranger who sojourns with you. There was one law, one standard. Not, oh, well, they meant well, let them break the rules. Nope, that's not it. There was one law shall be for you and for the stranger who sojourns with you. That's what Numbers 15, verse 16 says. And you are welcomed always, but you have to respect the system. You are welcomed when you respect the system. Okay, so let's talk about Nehemiah, the wall builder himself. He didn't pray away the invasion. He got up and he built the walls of Jerusalem to protect his people, not out of hate, but out of duty to his nation and to God. Tell that to an open borders bishop the next time they scream, build bridges, not walls. Build bridges, not walls. Okay, Nehemiah, he was a wall builder. The Bible also teaches us the importance of national identity, borders, and responsibility, and responsible governance. God divided the nations at Babel, and he assigned lands to tribes, and there was order. Not this open range global free-for-all, which is exactly what the left wants. So now the Bible doesn't bless law breaking just because someone has a sad story. Okay, it demands we show compassion within the boundaries of justice, just kind of like how Jesus and God are. God is a merciful God. God is also a God of justice. Illegal immigration is not mercy. It's disorder, it's deception, it's disrespect for the very nation God entrusted you to protect. Okay, so leftists, listen up. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. I'm Cat. The Bible commands compassion, not chaos. Laws, not loopholes. Justice is demanded, not just your feelings. Okay, so let's stop twisting scripture to fit your socialist slogans. Build walls, build bridges, not walls. And let's start reading the truth and the true backbone of the scripture. And look at the several examples which show us that illegal immigration is not condoned in the Bible. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. Thanks so much. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat. I appreciate you being here. I know you got options. I appreciate it. TheConservativeCat.com. You can go there and you can also get yourself a bottle of Patriot Pump pre-workout, promo code Conservative Cat. Get $10 off at checkout. Today we are going to be getting to the TikTokers melting down over the rent in her Democrat-run city, which is Los Angeles. I was just talking about Los Angeles because the insurance thing. And with that bill, folks, you can contact Governor J.B. Pritzker, ask him to veto it. This is the bill that, forces private companies like the insurance company, they're government subsidized, don't get me wrong, but the House Bill 2425, and like I said, I'm not for the insurance companies. I really am not, and I don't want to argue for them, but if we're going to have it, we've got to make sure it's risk-based, because ultimately the people who aren't risky, the non-felons, they're going to be winding up paying more for the people who are risky. So it's got to be risk-based, and it goes off of science and math, okay? And it goes off of facts, not feelings right now, this company, the insurance companies. So tell them to veto House Bill 2425, not because we hate felons, okay? Want to make that very clear, but because we respect math, and we respect markets, and we respect fairness. That's the only way for this thing to be fair. Insurance companies, and they've got to go off of risk. Now, are they doing that? No, it's designed, of course, to where you pay as much as possible and they pay out as little as possible. We need to fix that in the insurance industry. It's a separate issue, but we have to make sure that this is risk-based. And if the government decides what your rates are based on politics, not risk, no one is safe. And this sets a very dangerous precedent. The government gets to set insurance rates, and we don't want that in the state of Illinois. This is Illinois, folks. Every time you think they'll out-crazy themselves, they do it, and then they out-crazy and out-crazy and out-crazy themselves. They're fighting harder for felons right now than families, and they're protecting feelings, not freedom. And that's why we got to speak up, stay informed. That was, write this down with green crayon if you have to, House Bill 2425. Contact Governor J.B. Pritzker, tell him to veto it. Okay, so let's get to the TikToker melting down a little bit later. We are going to get to a judge that ruled that Donald Trump, his administration, can't stop funding medical transitions for prisoners, okay, because I guess it's unconstitutional and he can't do that. He wrote an executive order saying, hey, Federal Bureau of Prisons, you can't be paying for trans men or trans women, so men pretending to be girls, you can't pay for them to lop off their wieners and, get a set of boobs. Okay, you can't. The judge wants the taxpayer to do that and to pay for those types of surgeries for prisoners. That's what the judge ruled. So we're going to get into it. And plus, a Democrat official in Massachusetts, a city councilman woman, she physically assaulted an ICE officer for doing his job. And I don't know why this woman wasn't tackled and cuffed. It just goes to show you that they were very, very kind to her. The way she was acting, they should have cuffed her and threw her down to the ground and arrested her. So we're going to get to all of that. Only the left can create a system where both the poorest and the richest thrive. Okay, so the poorest and the middle class gets squeezed out. Okay, so the poorest in California, they thrive because they're not paying for anything. They're not paying for their housing. They're not paying for their insurance, their medical insurance. They're not paying for anything. Okay, so they're thriving, and the richest are thriving. Okay, but the middle class. So if you have a job and you've got a middle class, in your middle class, you're going to get squeezed out, and you can't find rent or a place to rent that isn't under $600 or $6,000 a month in California, in LA's West Side. So take a listen to this TikToker. She says something pretty important here, but I mean, you also live in California, lady. You probably shouldn't live there if you want rent that's inexpensive. Here we go.
Explains to me the LA rental market and where people are living on the west side that has a unit washer dryer and ideally air conditioning and maybe one parking spot, because my boyfriend and I have been looking for probably about a month. We're trying to move out in the next 30 to 60 days and there are just no options. And we go to these places and it's all greater than $6,000 and like, what? Where are people living? We are willing to not live on the west side at this rate because this has just been such a nightmare, honestly. And we had an apartment and then someone snatched it right up from us. And I'm starting to really lose hope. Can someone please explain?
In the background, there's fire trucks. Yeah. Well, totally preventable natural disaster, by the way, in LA. We're going to get to that because it kind of pertains to this, where the rent is, soared there. Because guess what? A lot of people are displaced after those fires. So it turns out rent control doesn't actually do anything to keep rent affordable. Shocking, right? It's almost like I say that all the time. Yeah, they have rent control in California. And guess what? The real world doesn't work that way. And the middle class will be squeezed out. And you can't find anything under $600,000 or $6,000 a month in LA's West Side. So, of course, it doesn't help that she's, searching in the sanctuary state. There's illegal immigrants there who are looking for housing. And the housing supply for legal residents is strained because there's illegal immigrants that have flooded there because it's a sanctuary state. So the housing supply is strained. Nonetheless, $6,000 a month for a property that you won't even own. I mean, that is a scandal. But it gets worse because I don't think that this is a coincidence, by the way, that most liberal cities, the more liberal, the more expensive it is. So I don't think that's a coinky dink. 4 out of the 5 most expensive places to live is in California. They're all in California, the most expensive places to live, 4 out of the 5. And she is having trouble, obviously, because this is a blue city. She should probably move out. Again, she's not buying. She's got to pay over $6,000 a month to rent somewhere. And she's never going to own this place. I can't even comprehend that. So to top it all off, this is due to sheer government incompetence. Okay. You guys remember the Los Angeles fires. That was very, very preventable. It was a natural disaster that was very preventable, not so natural because they refused to do controlled burns. The fire hydrants didn't have water in them. Same thing in Maui, Hawaii. They did the same thing because controlled burns, I guess, are terrible for the environment, according to the Green Weenie. So more and more people are searching for housing in this area, temporary housing, partly due to, the government's inability to pretend to care when there was a fire risk, and then the mayor left, right? And there was the fire risk was at its highest, and then the mayor left, and then all of a sudden, like, everything started to burn down, and we're seeing more unaffordable rentals because the housing supply is so strange right now. And it's pretty pathetic because the left often enacts policies under the guise of protecting the little guy. And they're like, oh, we're all in it for the little guy. And we're just want you to make ends meet. And they do the exact opposite. So rent control is there in California. I know there's many, many cities in central Illinois, Bloomington being one of them, where there's these leftist idiots who go to the city council meeting and scream rent control, rent control, rent control. How would you like to live in LA where they actually have rent control, and probably makes it much worse? And there's no place there that's under $6,000 a month. Okay, that's what's going to happen if you implement things like rent control. Just look at LA. So they pretend like they are all in it for the little guy who's just trying to make ends meet, but they do the exact opposite. And that's not compassionate. It's a slap in the face to everybody who's living paycheck to paycheck, obviously, in California. And nonetheless, they have done nothing in these places like LA, but make it more miserable. So the illegal immigrant issue, stop making it a sanctuary state. You're putting a strain on the housing supply. Number 2, you screwed up with the fires. Okay. This was a totally preventable tragedy. And you screwed up there. You didn't actually, with the whole water and Governor Gavin Newsom trying to protect this little salamander fish thing called the Delta smelt. He tried to protect it, and he deprived water from this area to try to protect the smelt. And it's just so ridiculous. They screwed up. They implemented these radical policies. Rent control actually brings rent prices higher. As evident, this is one of the only, not only there's a lot of places that do rent control. California is notorious for it. And look at the results. Clearly, rent control means not rent control, and it actually makes things higher. So they do radical policies, and they just wind up making it worse. And they blame landlords, and they say landlords are the reason why. Landlords are the reason why. I don't remember voting For judges, by the way, I want to shift gears. In November, radical judges. Yesterday we talked a lot. If you missed the show, it's archived on YouTube, Rumble. Follow me, subscribe to the channel if you're not. We talked about radical judges. They're shutting down Donald Trump's tariffs, which he has. I mean, Congress, they passed laws that are very, very clear about the president's authority to issue tariffs. They're very vague and general. And to me, when I read all of the policy that Congress has passed, seems like the president can issue tariffs pretty much for anything and as much as he wants. Like, that's the way I read these things. But the judges, they're activists, and they're stopping Donald Trump from putting America first, and they are on the side of the CCP. Yesterday, we got into how they have gone into places like Africa, Latin America, South America. They have bought, I don't even want to say bought, debt trapped these countries, debt trapped loans, where they give loans to these countries for infrastructure, and obviously these poor countries cannot pay back those loans. So in exchange, China comes in and they say, well, we're going to take your ports here and we're going to pretty much take over your country. And that's what they've done, China. And what Donald Trump is simply trying to do is make it harder for China to take over, the world with these tariffs. And the judge said, nope, you can't tariff. And like, literally, this is one of the only things that the president can do. It's about national security, tariffs, and foreign policy. That is what the president's role is. The executive order here with the prisoners and the transgender stuff, Congress needs to start doing their flipping job. Let's just be honest here. Congress should really be the ones who do this. This was an executive order by the president, which I don't think is, a bad way to go about it. But Congress, they should take this ruling from this judge, and they should craft up a law and pass a law. And I'd like to see a judge say that the legislature can't pass a law, right? These activist judges. But anyway, so I don't remember voting for judges in November. Do you? No, I voted for Donald Trump. And, this makes it so strange, the fact that I voted for Donald Trump, and I want to ensure that prisoners are not getting breast implants and chopping their wee-wees off. I want to ensure that I'm not paying for that. Okay. I don't want to pay for that. I think that it's dangerous that you house women and men in the same door, or I don't know what you call them, dorm, same area. They're like mingling men in with women populations in prisons, which is just so dangerous. And I don't think I need to go into why. But medical transitions for criminals, especially when regular folks, they don't even get that kind of coverage. So transgender individuals should probably be pretty upset about this as well, because even transgender individuals who want to seek these medical transitions, and I don't like these at all. I don't think anybody should be getting them. Most of them have to try to qualify for Medicaid in order to get that paid by the state. So a lot of so if you're a middle class transgender person who wants to medically transition, you can't even do it. The prisoners can, though, because they're within the prison system. So the people are tired of this kind of stuff, and the fact that the courts think that they can just ignore public opinion is pretty outrageous, and they can ignore our vote. We spoke very loudly on November. We wanted President Donald Trump. So here, Judge Lamberth is his name, Royce Lamberth, and he ordered that hormone therapy and social accommodations be maintained for transgender people in federal prisons. And he blocked President Donald Trump's executive order targeting the group, transgender prisoners. It's not really targeting the group, okay? What he's saying is taxpayers, and there's a little thing called the Hyde Amendment. It's the same amendment that says that you cannot pay for abortions. Taxpayers shouldn't be paying for people's abortions, okay? No, I'm fundamentally against that. And that's not a wrong position to have, right? If it contradicts your Christian values. No, I don't want people to chop their wee-wees off on my dime. Sorry. You know what I mean? The judge stated that the federal law prohibits prison officials from arbitrarily depriving inmates of medications, okay, and other lifestyle accommodations that its own medical staff deems appropriate. Here's what's wrong with this ruling. If I'm a prisoner I mean, what's to stop me from saying, my lifestyle accommodation, I need to golf every Saturday, and I need to go to the golf course and ride around on a golf cart and sink a hole in one or whatever, and that's my lifestyle accommodation, and I need the staff to deem this appropriate, and then the staff deems it appropriate. So like, what's to stop inmates from saying, like, inmates and medical staff, or prison staff, from saying, oh, well, this is a lifestyle accommodation that they want, and we deem it appropriate, so we're going to give it to the prisoners. We send our prisoners to prison to be punished. We send them there to be rehabilitated, but we also send them there to be punished. And there's nothing wrong with punishing people. Okay. If you kill someone, you need to be punished, and you need to be deprived of freedom because you killed someone. Okay. You need to be deprived of the spoils of this country if you break the laws. You give up a certain part. Now, affording you all the human rights, right? We're not saying, kill you or imprison you and not give you, basic necessities. But like, what's to stop these people from saying, my lifestyle accommodations requires me to go golfing every Saturday. And the staff agrees with that. And now all of a sudden we've got prisoners taking little field trips to the golf course on Saturdays when you don't even get to go out and golf on Saturdays, right? So, according to the AP, the Federal Bureau of Prisons must continue to provide hormone therapy and social accommodations to hundreds of transgender inmates following an executive order signed by President Donald Trump. And that has led to, this executive order that has led to medical treatment disruption. Okay. I don't like to call this medical treatment, okay, because it's not necessary. Okay. This is because you feel some type of way. It's similar to that of, like, I don't know, Botox. You feel like you're looking old and you want to go get Botox. And like, what's to stop that from being deemed a lifestyle accommodation that the medical staff agree? And then all of a sudden the taxpayers are paying for your Botox or for your eyebrow plucking. I don't know. And the federal judge ruled that they have to continue, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, they have to continue providing hormone therapies and medical transitioning surgeries. Okay. So the U.S. District Judge Royce Lamberth said federal law prohibits prison officials from arbitrarily depriving inmates medications and other lifestyle accommodations. The judge said transgender inmates who sued to block this. So this was a bunch of transgender inmates who got together and sued over Donald Trump's executive order. They said that they were trying to lessen the personal anguish caused by their gender dysphoria. Okay. And like I said, personal anguish. So even the judge admits here in his ruling, personal anguish, that this is a personal problem. Okay. And I shouldn't have to pay for it because they've got personal anguish over their gender dysphoria, which is a distress that person feels because they're assigned a gender and the gender doesn't match, even if, the left believes that we must affirm this so-called personal anguish. Okay. Why must we do it for the criminals? That's another point that I want to make here this morning. Why can't this just be reserved for productive members of society? Say you're transgender. I don't agree with it. Ultimately, transgender individuals die by suicide at a very, very high rate. And I don't believe it's a lifestyle that is going to ultimately end in a prosperous life for individuals. A lot of transgender individuals die in the homicide. If you look at the homicide rates amongst this community, they die at the hands of drug pins, and they die at the hands of like pimps, and they go into these occupations of prostitution and drug crime and all of that. And it's just reflective of this ideology. It's not helpful to these individuals in any kind of way. So I recommend that nobody is transgender, and I recommend that we stop this ideology right away because it's going to harm people. And you won't find, typically, transgender people are very productive members of society. They struggle with mental illness, like separately of their gender dysphoria, separate from they struggle with thoughts of suicide. Like, all of the data points to that. Okay. So they're usually not productive members of society. Nonetheless, taxes should never fund this kind of stuff. really. Like, if you want to say, like, okay, let's affirm this person's personal anguish of their gender dysphoria, and we should, allow them to get these transgender surgery, sure. Why are we doing it? One, for criminals. Two, why are we doing it with taxpayer funds? Especially when law-abiding citizens, they don't get this sort of special treatment. Law-abiding transgender individuals don't get this sort of special treatment. They have to pay for their transgender transitioning surgery. So in light of the plaintiffs' largely personal motives for undergoing gender-affirming care, neither the Bureau of Prisons nor the executive order provides any serious explanation, this is what the judge says, as to why the treatment why the treatment should be denied under the executive order, and implementing a ban should be handled differently. So here's, at the end of the day, what I think needs to happen from here. The judge issued this ruling. Okay, you say Donald Trump can't do it via executive order. Well, we have Congress, we have the House, we have the Senate. Draft up a law, pass the thing, get this over with. I'd love to see a judge then say that this law is unconstitutional or whatever, because we voted for Donald Trump. We voted for the House and the Senate. I didn't vote for you, Judge. Sorry. Despite all these efforts to try to bring sanity back to this country, it always feels like there's a judge ready to shut it down and to just cause all kinds of insanity. And I don't know about you, but I did not vote for activist judges. I voted for Donald Trump. I voted for Republican members of Congress and Senate. So I want to get to this story. I got to take a quick break, but there was this councilwoman, Atel Hajai, I don't know. She's on body cam footage, and she's acting like a total nut. She puts her hands all over these ICE officers, and she starts shouting at them. She practically wrestles them to the ground. I don't know why she's not in prison or was arrested, but she threw a temper tantrum like a toddler, and she did it all for her self-proclaimed. She proclaims this woman as a constituent. Okay, now this woman who was being deported had committed serious crimes, including a crime against a pregnant woman. We're going to get to all of it here. Conservative Cat, find me on theconservativecat.com, and go ahead and get your bottle of pre-workout at patriotpumpenergy.com, promo code Conservative Cat. I will be right back. Welcome back to Conservative Cat Clips, the place where we claw through the globalist garbage and we land on the truth. I'm your host, Kat, and today we are putting a spotlight on the topic the elites don't want to really talk about it all. That is the Great American Tech Scam, and it is known as H-1B visa abuse. Now, let's get one thing straight. The H-1B visas, they were never meant to replace Americans. They were designed to fill critical skill gaps. You know, the rare, highly skilled jobs, highly specialized jobs in the U.S. that no U.S. citizen was able to fulfill, and they weren't qualified to do so. So, surprise, surprise, big tech twisted the law into a legal loophole, and now they're using it to import cheap foreign labor and kick the American worker to the curb. Okay, so if you want the receipts, I'll talk the numbers if you want to. You want to talk numbers? The U.S. government issues 85,000 H-1B visas every year, and nearly 70% of them come from India, workers from India. And they're mostly in IT and software jobs. And here's the kicker. Most of them aren't PhDs. They're not geniuses. No. They're mid-level coders and tech support. And they're doing jobs that qualified Americans are getting laid off from. Companies like Infosys, Tata, foreign outsourcing companies, they have become H-1B recipients. Okay. Farming out workers to places like Google, Amazon, Facebook. And they're pushing out the United States citizen who demands fair pay. The United States citizens, I'm not doing slave labor. These companies like Infosys, they're foreign outsourcing giants, okay, and they've become top H-1B recipients, farming workers out to places. So they're the companies that get the workers, and then they give them to Google, Amazon, and Facebook. In fact, in a recent case, it shows this. Disney was training their own H-1B replacements before laying off the American workers. Yes, this is a recent case. That's not innovation, that's exploitation. So the American worker was quite literally training their worker, like their replacement. And Infosys and Tata, these foreign outsourcing giants, they supply these companies like Google, Amazon, and Facebook with the cheap labor. It's kind of like human trafficking, if you ask me. Like legal human trafficking, the state sanctioned human trafficking. And guess what? These visas are renewable for up to 6 years. So they lead to green cards, which means these jobs aren't temporary at all. So they're not just temporarily doing cheap labor here. They are quite literally being outsourced, these American workers. Don't even get me started on the wages. H-1B workers are often paid 20% or 40% less, anywhere between 20 to 40% less than the American counterpart. Why? Because these companies aren't hiring for skill. They're hiring for savings. That's what it is. And the real victims here are the American class, middle class, the American worker, especially in STEM. They went to college, they want these jobs, and now they lose everything. They took out all these loans and they lose their job, and now they're told, sorry, we got to give your job to someone cheaper from overseas, and we're going to call it diversity. That's what they're doing in these big tech jobs, Google, Facebook, Amazon. And where's the government? Half asleep and bought off, because these H-1B abusers, they have got armies of lobbyists in Washington, D.C., and they are pushing this to increase the cap every year of how many H-1B visa workers can be awarded their visas. So I said it was $85,000 a year. Well, they've got these lobbyists like your Infosys, your your giants, your H-1B visas, these foreign outsourcing company giants. They're down in Washington, D.C., and they are lobbying, and they are pushing to increase this cap from 85,000 every year to more and more and more. And they're claiming there's a worker shortage. No, honey, there's a wage shortage. There's a big difference. This is Kat signing off, conservative Cat Clips. Here's the truth. Hiring foreign labor at the expense of the American worker is an innovation. It's betrayal, it's treason, and it's business. It's betrayal in a business suit. That's what it is. It's just a straight up it's time to cap the scam. It's time to get rid of the scam, put American talent first, and this country needs to stop outsourcing its own people. It's been Conservative Cat Clips. Hey, good morning. I appreciate you being here. I'm Conservative Cat. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about someone who is just a nut, threw a temper tantrum, and she acted like a toddler, and, she thinks she's above the law. This is a Massachusetts city council member, and she had to learn the hard way, essentially, that you can't do this. Now, she's caught on body cam footage, and she was caught putting her hands all over these federal officers, shouting at them. She practically was wrestling them. I don't know why she didn't get arrested. Okay. She was attempting to stop the ICE officers from arresting a different woman who very likely did break federal immigration law. Okay. I don't know if the deportation, I didn't see the deportation order or the primary document. So I'm going to say, I'm sure she broke federal immigration law. It's not like ICE is going out there and grabbing strangers and shipping them off to strange people, citizens, okay, and shipping them off to foreign countries. That's not happening. So it's unclear if she truly believed the officers were going to listen to her cries and feel her punches and really pay attention to her. It's kind of funny because she's, a small woman, and she's like the size of an ant going up against these big ICE officers, and we play the clip. But did she really think that they were going to listen to her? They have orders to go detain this suspect who probably broke federal immigration law. Nonetheless, this woman did herself and the other woman zero favors. Okay. And the sooner she realizes that, the better off she's going to be. Acting like a buffoon here is not going to really help anybody. Okay. Maybe the woman that you were defending, your constituent, as she says here in the clip, maybe if your constituent, your so-called constituent, if she had come to the country legally, she wouldn't be in this mess and she wouldn't be getting arrested. So let's take a look here.
Guys, you gotta step back.
Take her! No, ma'am, this is my constituent. No, you do not touch me. Do not touch me.
I need you to go over there.
I need you to not touch me.
A federal arrest.
Do not touch me.
Come on.
Let's go. Come on. Please don't touch me. No,
You're obstructing a federal arrest right now. Do you understand that? Let's go. You can be charged. We could absolutely step off the vehicle.
Understand you? No, I'm the district councilor. I have a right to be here. No, do not touch me. Why are you touching me? No.
Don't fucking touch me.
Don't touch me. Don't touch
Guys, you gotta step away. Back away. You gotta back away. Hands on me.
So this woman is practically wrestling these ICE officers or trying to get in their faces. And the fact that she thought acting like that was going to give her whatever she was demanding, which was that this woman wasn't going to be deported or taken by ICE officers to answer for her alleged crimes. She wanted that to be the result, that these ICE acting like that is not going to help. You know, what I would have done if I was a councilman who held the beliefs that she does clearly, where she believes that anybody who's here illegally is a constituent of hers. If I were a councilman and I believed that, I would be like, okay, where is she going to be? I'm going to get there with a nonprofit lawyer, right? And I'm going to go about this in a civil way, but rather she flung her arms around and started hitting ICE officers. She's got no shame. Deeply, deeply pathetic and embarrassing, according to the Post-Millennial. Worcester, Massachusetts. This is the city council member. Her name is Atel Hajayaj. I don't know. She was caught on body cam footage, and this was an arrest of a Brazilian illegal immigrant woman. Okay, immigration authorities attempted to block the arrest, or they attempted. So this woman, the councilwoman, and there was another woman who came in, and they attempted to block the authorities from arresting this Brazilian immigrant, and she's a woman. So Democrat City councilwoman Hatel Hajaj was seen pushing immigration authorities, wrestling them, blocking them with her body, shouting, "You can't take her, you can't take her." And then at one point with her body, she flung it at the officers. And she says, "This is my constituent. This is my constituent. You can't take my constituent." So absolutely insane. She's saying that this is their constituent. This tells you all you really need to know about the left. This speaks volumes. She took an oath to represent Americans. Okay. She doesn't think of you as a constituent, legal Americans. She thinks of foreign nationals who came to the country illegally and broke our federal immigration laws. She thinks that those are her constituents. So you're certainly not her constituent. She'd rather stand up and represent foreign nationals. So D. Oliveira is the teenage daughter here, which I don't know the teenage daughter's name, that was concealed. You can see her on the cop car getting arrested. She had like some sort of like bottle in her hand and they were cuffing her, but she ran out after her mother, D. Oliveira, who is this alleged Brazilian illegal immigrant. She ran after her mother, and the mother had been placed in the cop car. She kicked the cop car. Then all of a sudden she found herself on the hood being cuffed. Yeah, because you were kicking a cop car. Okay. And then before she kicked the cop car, she had a baby, right? And handed the baby off to somebody else. So this teenager was charged with reckless endangerment of a child. Good. You are like going and fighting police, and then you have your child with you, and you like throw this to a strange person, to a strange person in the crowd. Then she was charged with disturbing the peace, disorderly conduct, resisting arrests, and then she was later released from custody. I don't know why. She kicked a cop car. She gave her child baby to another person that was there. That's child endangerment. Don't know why she was released, but they were very patient, these ICE officers, clearly. The Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McClellan said in a statement, district counselor for the city of Worcester, Attell, pulled a political stunt. She incited chaos, and she was trying to obstruct law enforcement. ICE officers and local police regained control of the situation and arrested de Oliveira, Ferreira de Oliveira. She's the Brazilian illegal. The previous administration's open border policies allowed this criminal to illegally enter our country in August of 2022. So she was illegally in this country as of 2022, went through an illegal port of entry, did not try to seek asylum or seek a visa, work visa, student visa, nothing like that, H-1Bs. So thanks to President Donald Trump and Secretary No, this criminal is now off of our streets. So on top of, they called her a criminal in this statement. So you're probably wondering to yourself, okay, did she just illegally enter? No, she actually broke more laws. So despite, federal immigration in 2022 turning a blind eye, she's a danger. She's also been arrested. She's a criminal. She has been arrested for assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, assault and battery on a pregnant woman. Okay, by the way. So the fact that this person was being advocated for by a council member, and this is the type of person that this council member wants to protect, that is deeply disturbing. And that is a slap in the face to who should be her actual constituents, which is Americans and the people of Worcester, Massachusetts, who are legal citizens. This illegal alien assaulted a pregnant woman. On top of breaking federal immigration laws, she assaulted a pregnant woman and has been arrested for assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. I mean, come on. The fact that the left claims that this woman was in the right, this councilwoman, like, they're, of course, praising her on the usual suspects are praising her for acting like a toddler and throwing a tantrum and throwing her fist at ICE officers. They're praising her for that. This goes to show you just how low the left is, how low they'll go. This country is a lot safer now because this woman is off the streets, in my opinion. She assaulted a pregnant woman, was arrested for that. So I think I'm going to get better sleep knowing she's off the streets, knowing that a lot of these criminal aliens, and I say criminal aliens because on top of the crime of illegally entering the country, they've committed other crimes like assault of pregnant women. I'm going to sleep like a baby at night, knowing that President Donald Trump is in office and doing this, and Secretary Noem is sending ICE officers, and that these ICE officers, I mean, I don't know how I would have reacted in that situation. I'm not an ICE officer, so if I was, I don't know if I could be, because they acted with utmost patience, and if somebody was throwing a tantrum like that, I would have hip tossed him to the ground and cuffed him right there, threw him in the cop car. I would not have been so kind. These ICE officers weren't touching her at all. They didn't cuff her or anything, this councilwoman. All right, I gotta take a quick break, but when we come back, Donald Trump is threatening Gavin Newsom, saying, hey, you got to protect women in women's sports. He's still not doing that, despite Governor Gavin Newsom claiming that he's some sort of moderate stuck in this progressive California, that he's just like you and he's a moderate too, and he's stuck in progressive California. His actions speak louder than his words. He says, oh, I'm moderate and I'm all for. He spoke out against males being in women's sports, by the way. This was not that long ago. He's on the Charlie Kirk show. And he spoke out and said, oh, yeah, I agree that men should be in women's sports. Okay, but if you agreed, you'd take action in your state and not allow this to happen. Another male athlete was allowed to compete against girls in this track state championship. And we're going to get to it because Donald Trump threw out a Truth Social. And we're going to be right back. Be sure to find me at theconservativecat.com. Find me on Rumble. Follow the channel. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I'll be right back.
Real strength doesn't need applause, and real faith doesn't flex for attention. Jesus said, when you fast, don't walk around looking miserable. Try to look holy. That's not devotion. That's performance. And God doesn't reward actors. Matthew 6, verses 16 through 18. Is Jesus calling men to fast in secret, where only the Father sees? Because fasting isn't about proving your discipline. It's about pursuing God with hunger. So real, you trade food for fire. You don't fast to earn points. You don't fast to make space. You weaken the flesh so the spirit gets louder. You say no to your cravings so you can say yes to something deeper. But here's the catch. It's got to be real. Not for your boys, not for social media, just you and God. In the quiet, in the dark. That's where rewards are born. In silence, in secret, in the furnace of unseen obedience. You want to be strong in public? Train in private. Fast without a stage. Pray without applause. Obey without a crowd. Your Father sees in secret, and He's the only one who reward what matters. Patriot Pump doesn't give you just energy. It keeps you focused. No fluff, no crash, just clean, hard-driving fuel for men who train with purpose and sacrifice. If you're building discipline in the dark, this is your edge. Train hard, stay sharp.
Good morning. Hey, so do appreciate you being here. Conservative Cat, be sure to subscribe to the channel and follow me on Rumble. That's a great place to get the show. You can also get it on Facebook, and you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you get your podcast. The show is very, very available. Now, I do want to chat about California, Donald Trump threatening to pull state funding from the state, California. And what really bothers me here is that Governor Gavin Newsom has presented himself as a moderate several times, okay? And he's come out specifically about this issue and has talked about the integrity of women's sports and not having men in women's sports. Governor Gavin Newsom has yet to condemn this situation here where a male athlete was competing with girls at the state CIF championships. As a result, he took awards away from female athletes who rightfully earned them. Okay, and he doesn't care about the issue, obviously, Governor Gavin Newsom. Otherwise, he'd put an end to it, and your actions speak louder than your words. Governor Gavin Newsom, President Donald Trump threatened California with large fines if the state refuses to protect women's sports, and said that he's in violation of the executive order restoring the meaning of Title IX. The state has continued to allow all males, similar to that of Illinois, the state of Illinois. They do the same thing where Illinois, Naperville recently, I think it was also a track meet where this boy was running against or won against all of these females and was awarded. Now, this trans identified male athlete, A.B. Hernandez, finished first place at the state's, of course, track and field championship. Okay, first place, obviously, over the weekend. Now, at the meet, there were protesters, and they stated that, hey, boys should not be playing in girls' sports. And the state had attempted to comply with Trump's order, but here's how they attempted to comply with the order. Get this. They made extra spots at the podium for the girls. So usually, you have like first, second, and third place. Well, they extended it to like fourth, fifth, and sixth place, right? So they extended the podium and allowed more girls to place. And I'm sorry, but that doesn't sit well with me. I'm sure it doesn't sit well with you. And it definitely didn't sit well with President Donald J. Trump. He said on Truth Social, a biological male completely competed against California girls in the state finals, winning big, very large, despite the fact that they were warned by me, no one else. They were warned by me not to do so. Governor Gavin Newsom fully understands large-scale fines will be imposed. Yeah. So he True Socialed this out, and if sex and gender were supposed to be two different things, okay, they say that all the time. The left, they're like, oh, sex is a different thing, and you can identify as something totally different than your biological sex. Okay, if they were different things, why do they keep treating them like the same thing? Right? Why do trans women, aka men dressed as girls, why do they have to compete against the biological sex female? Okay, why do they have to do that? It's because they are the same thing. Gender and sex are the same thing. And, it's something that they can't seem to grasp. They'll say it's not the same, but they want it to be the same. And really, at the end of the day, they're undermining women's sports. And it's just pathetic. Donald Trump, he threatened to pull this funding, and I hope he does. I hope he pulls the funding from the state of Illinois. I hate to see that because we're already in a fiscally terrible spot, evident by the $1 billion in tax increases this past state budget. And they're also talking about $1.50 delivery fee that it might come back this summer session. I hope he pulls all the funding because screw you, state of California, screw you, state of Illinois. And the IHSA, they've come out and they're like, well, there's only 3 transgender individuals in the entire, Illinois high school. And it's a very small minority, so we're not really going to do anything. That's essentially what the IHSA said that they're going to do. I'm just like, give me a break. The left claims that they support women and women's rights, but they actively work against them all of the time, And I say this all the time. The left, the only standards they've got are double standards. You say you're for women, but you're really not. America voted to make gender matter again. Makes sex the only thing that really matters. Gender and sex are the same thing, biological sex. We voted it for this. And these California officials, they might not want to accept that, but guess what? You're going to have to eat the fines. It's going to cost you. And ultimately, it's going to cost the taxpayers of California, which is really sad. All right, let's get to Tim Walz. I'm going to wrap up the show with this. This is a clip from Tim Walz. Oh boy, Democrats, they're still trying to understand why they've lost young men. And failed Vice President Tim Walz, presidential candidate Tim Walz, he had to have his teenage son explain to him why the Democrats are hated by young men. In a nutshell, Trump doesn't make young men feel like they're hated, and the Democrat Party makes young men feel like they're hated. And let's take a listen here.
Because I'm proud to say it looks like as of next Tuesday, I'm going to have a high school graduate with my son, Gus. And he's pretty in tune to this. But when he said this, he said, Dad, a lot of these young guys, especially, said they're not voting on the policy issues. And he wasn't dissing them. He said they may know the policy issues, but most of them don't. They're doing it because there's a sense of excitement, a sense of thrill in this. It's entertainment or whatever. We all dismiss that. Donald Trump's a clown. Donald Trump's rallies are a clown. This MMA fighting stuff and this, and look, you start veering into the Andrew Tate stuff, which is dangerous misogyny and, assault issues and all of that. But there's a peripheral side of that is not criminal, but is still going down the same road of saying you got a place to belong. And I think, this is me just pontificating for what it's worth, social media and other things have disconnected people more than they were. We were more connected in my generation. It was easier to be a kid when I was growing up. And I've always said this as a teacher, if you don't give a kid a place to belong, they'll go find one. So why you want them to be involved in sports and music and things in school, because they will go find a group of folks. And I think Donald Trump understands belonging, understand groups. I mean, you look at it. He gives them a uniform, the red hat. He gives them some chants, some talking points, whatever. It's not all that different than when we build sports teams in high school. You belong, you're part of this. It's not so much the policies. I think it's incredibly dangerous, but I don't think we went out to get them. We didn't out to make them feel a part of this.
Okay. Set aside the bit about how guys don't care about policy. Not true. Young men are very, very smart. And this is yet another example why the Democrat Party has lost them. It's because he thinks that they're too dumb to understand policy and that they don't really care about policy, which is whatever. Set that aside. This is how the Democrat brain works. And come in close, I'll tell you. The Democrat brain works like this. They isolate a policy. Okay. And they will pander to you this policy. And if you don't accept this policy, then they will target you and they will say that you hate this side, and that the side that disagrees with the policy hates this particular demographic. So let me give an example. Illegal immigration. Okay. They want open borders, things like that, this type of policy. They want to legally enshrine like illegal immigration and that's what that bill was. Kamala Harris said that Donald Trump deprived Border Patrol agents of higher pay, and we could have fixed the border crisis, but Donald Trump got Republicans to vote down the border bill. Okay, so illegal immigration, they pander this policy to a specific demographic, Hispanic Americans. And they don't realize, though, that Hispanic Americans are Americans first and foremost, and they dislike illegal immigration almost as much as a white American, okay? But they'll accuse you of hating Hispanic people or brown people because you disagree with their illegal immigration policy. And that is the Democrat playbook, and that's how they think. And they don't, white young men specifically, cisgender, well, I hate to use that term, straight white young men, they don't like that so much. That you take a policy, you pander it to a specific demographic, and then if I disagree with that policy, then you say, I hate Hispanic people or I hate this demographic. Remember, the reason why Tim Walz was selected was so that way he could pander with men and give men the green light and say, hey, you have my permission to go vote for women. The border issue that Walz's son alludes to is that, or the issue here that Tim Walz's son alludes to is that there's not a place for them to belong in the Democrat Party. I don't think it's so much that. I think it's that the Democrat Party chases them away and demonizes them, and they implement this strategy where they select a policy, pander it to a demographic. If you oppose that policy, which will ultimately be every white male, because illegal immigration, men are supposed to protect their families, and if we're not vetting people who come into our home, America is our home, we're not vetting those people to come into our home, then white men have to deal with that and they have to protect their families and it makes life harder for them. So naturally, they're going to be against those types of policies, open border policies. Okay. So naturally, they're going to be against that, but not because they're brown. Okay. It's simply because they don't want to have to deal with protecting their family or worry about their family at home from people who we know nothing about and you're letting them in. Okay, so it has nothing to do with the fact that they're brown, but they're told that they're racist because they oppose the policy and they're against this specific demographic because they pandered that policy to Hispanic Americans. So Democrats, they claim things like eating meat, working out, liking pretty girls, that's all bad. And that's why men have fled from the Democrat Party because they take the fun out of everything. And I'm sorry, but Caucasian cisgender males, they are often not asked for their opinion ever. And that's why they feel alienated and they went to Donald Trump and they do feel like they belong because Donald Trump simply said, no, I don't hate you because you disagree with my policy. They won't disagree with his policies because they benefit them. But he says, no, even if you did hate my policies, I won't hate you. And I'm just going to implement policies that I believe that the American people prefer. Okay. And that's why they went to Donald Trump. It's because he said, I don't hate you and I'm not going to chase you away. If you don't like them, that's okay. But I'm just doing what I believe America needs. The American people needs America first policies. So yeah, anyway, it's not so much that they don't have this sense of belonging. It's really a policy issue of these policies. And Donald Trump asks these young men what they want. Okay. And he implements what young men want, which are policies that better their life and make life easier. that's been it for today's show. I appreciate you being here. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. And you can download the podcast today at Apple Podcast and on Spotify. We'll be back tomorrow morning, bright and early. It's a daily show, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Time.